Smoking behind the supermarket with you might be the most unexpectedly massive anime of summer 2026. A simple story featuring Higuruma and Makima about sitting, smoking, and having feelings while being an adult with a job. So what even is this show? Our main character is Sasaki. He's 45 years old, basically the definition of unk. He works at what only can be described as a black company. That's the Japanese term for a workplace so soul-destroying it deserves its own criminal classification. Mandatory overtime, nightmare bosses, that's the kind of environment where you don't burn out, you just vaporize. But every single day Sasaki makes one stop on his way home, Supermarket S. And not for the groceries, oh no, he goes for register number 2. Because at register number 2 sits Yamada, a cashier with a permanent sunshine smile who, for reasons that science cannot explain, makes this man feel like a human being again. So for short, it's his crush. But while Sasaki is 45, Yamada is only 24. Now here's where it gets fun. One day Sasaki gets held late at work and by the time he drags himself to the supermarket, Yamada is gone. Off the clock. His one good thing in life is just gone. So he does what any devastated middle-aged man does. He goes for a smoke. And behind the store in the parking lot he meets a woman named Tayama. Sounds familiar? Well, she wears a leather jacket, short hair, piercings. Someone who is so effortlessly cool that Sasaki, the socially awkward guy that he is, has absolutely no idea how to process her. What Sasaki does not realize and what the audience knows immediately is that Tayama and Yamada are the same person. That's right, this is a mistaken identity romance where the man is oblivious not because of supernatural circumstances, but because the woman simply took her apron off and let her hair down, while also hiding her piercings. And somehow that's enough for Sasaki not to recognize her, because he has never seen Yamada without her customer service face, and those two modes are, shall we say, distinct, like night and day, let me tell you. Yamada at work is like, welcome, how are you? Every moment with you is a gift, while Tayama behind the store is like, you're a weird guy, light my cigarette. Same woman, different universe. Now, before we talk about the anime, we need to talk about where this whole thing came from, because I found the origin of this idea genuinely shocking. Yes, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to the creation process. The creator Jinushi was already serializing a supernatural manga when their editors suggested they try writing something short and realistic as a creative exercise. Just a warm-up, a palate cleanser. So Jinushi started drawing their own background in customer service, set the story in a supermarket and posted the first chapter on Twitter in March 2022. Let me put that in perspective, this was a Twitter webcomic that someone made as a warm-up exercise, and it went more viral than most professional media campaigns. It's the creative equivalent of doodling something on a napkin and accidentally winning the Louvre. By January 2026, it had over 3 million copies in circulation. And then came the anime. Crunchyroll, sensing something for the first time, did something unusual. They dropped 12 mini episodes as a special pre-release on June 4th, 2026, a full month before the official July 9th premiere, essentially giving us, the people, a sample. And the results were, to use a technical term, absolutely unhinged. There's a lesson here about expectations. Audiences did not expect to be emotionally annihilated by an anime about two adults sharing a cigarette behind a supermarket. So why? Why did this particular story about this particular exhausted man and this particular cashier with a secret punk alter ego resonate so deeply with so many people? Seems like something too normal, boring, and maybe depressing. First thing that comes to mind is that a huge chunk of the people watching anime in 2026 started watching in their teens. They watched high school romances as high schoolers. They watched coming of age stories while coming of age. All of that made sense. But here's the thing, those people did not stop existing when they graduated. They went to work, they got tired, they discovered the specific understated horror of performance reviews and overtime. Sasaki isn't a protagonist who needs to level up, unlock his true powers, or confess his feelings in the rain before the school festival. He's a protagonist who just needs to get through his Friday to get a break. And that hits different when you know what a week worth of work actually costs. One of the most brilliant things about this series is the way it frames Yamada's split personality. She has her cheerful, relentlessly helpful customer service persona, which is Yamada at work, And then she has her actual personality, which is Tayama, the teasing, sharp, almost dominant leather jacket wearing human who smokes behind the store and makes fun of Sasaki with increasing affection. In almost any other series, this would be played as a quirky character trait. Like, oh, she's so mysterious, she has two sides. But it's not quirky, it's what retail workers do, it's what everyone does. You put on the face that the job requires and then you take it off when you clock out. Yamada's dual personality isn't a plot device, it's just having a job and also having a self. Former retail workers who have watched this show have described a very specific feeling of recognition, of seeing something true about their experience reflected on screen without it being used for laughs or tragedy, but simply acknowledged as the texture of life. That kind of accuracy and balance is rarer than it sounds. The smoking area behind the supermarket is, on paper, not romantic. It's a parking lot, there's probably a dumpster nearby. The lighting is functional at best. It definitely doesn't sound romantic and it doesn't feel like the place to meet the love of your life. But somehow, Jinushi transforms it into a liminal space, that in-between place where normal rules are suspended. The alley behind the store feels strangely cozy, almost like a secret world hidden away from everyday responsibilities. It's the place for only the two characters involved in the story. There's something about the specific geography of the story, the back of a building, the end of the day, the edge of the night shift, that creates an emotional permission structure where it's intensely intimate. Both characters are between things. Sasaki is between work and home, between exhaustion and rest. Yamada is between her work self and her real self. In that in-between space, honesty becomes possible. It strips them of their masks and allows them to be real. It's also worth noting that you don't have to be a smoker to feel this. The cigarette is almost incidental. What it really is a ritual, a structured excuse to pause, to stand still in the world for 5 minutes. And in a story about people who are relentlessly busy, that pause is everything. Talking about cigarettes, let's also talk about the pacing. Weird transition, but hear me out. Specifically, the decision to make this series move at the pace of a very content snail who has just had a very lovely meal. This is what the anime community calls a slow burn romance, and Smoking Behind the Supermarket with You is perhaps the most committed practitioner of this form currently airing. Trust me, it almost puts Spy Family or Apothecary Diaries to shame, and you can call them fast-paced. The story is structured around short scenes. Each chapter, each episode is essentially just a cigarette's worth of time. A conversation, a moment. Just think about it, an episode is 12 minutes long. A cigarette takes around 7 to 10 minutes to smoke. I don't know if they had this in mind, but in my opinion it's brilliant. But also why? Well, because the restraint is the point. Sasaki and Yamada are adults navigating adult lives. Real adult romance doesn't usually happen in a single dramatic confessional speech in the rain. It's not like in The Notebook. A shared joke, a small act of consideration, a moment where someone sees you and doesn't look away. This story understands that the magic is in the accumulation of small things. Now, there is a comedy element here that deserves its own moment. Because while the audience is perfectly aware that Yamada and Tayama are the same person, Sasaki remains blissfully, magnificently oblivious. He has a crush on Yamada, the cashier. He's also developing real feelings for Tayama, the mysterious smoking companion. And he seems absolutely unprepared to handle the news that these two directions lead to the same door. There's a chapter 26 for those keeping track, where Sasaki accidentally talks Yamada into realizing she's in love with him, while remaining completely unaware that the person he's helping figure out their feelings is also the person he's catching feelings for. It's a masterclass in dramatic irony, but also mildly painful to read as a sentient viewer. Like, Sasaki, friend, my buddy. She's right there, she's literally always right there. But let's zoom out for a moment, because Smoking Behind the Supermarket with You is part of a genuine shift happening in anime right now. For a long time, the dominant commercial formula for anime romance was pretty locked in. High school setting, teenage protagonists, mandatory school festival episode, confess or don't confess, roll credits. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, it produced some incredible shows. However, the adult romance niche has always existed, but it's historically been smaller and harder to find. For example, Otaku I Love is Hard for Otaku became a cult classic precisely because it centered working adults who happen to be nerds. Life lessons with Uramichi Onisan weaponized workplace despair into dark comedy. But these were the exceptions. What's happening now feels like the beginning of something more sustained. Smoking behind the supermarket with you isn't just a good show. It's being cited as proof of concept, proof that there is a genuine audience for anime that treats adulthood not as something to escape from but as the actual setting for human connection. It even has the potential to set a new standard for slice of life anime, something other shows will be compared to. The perfect ratings it has sends a message of "we have been waiting for this, we want more of this, please." But where this show succeeds is the eye candy. The character design is doing a lot of heavy lifting in a very elegant way. Yamada's two modes are visually distinct, an apron and neat hair for the cashier version, and short punky hair and leather jacket for Tayama, and yet obviously the same person to any outside observer. The art, both in manga and adapted to animation, has been praised for its clean expressiveness. Sasaki's perpetually wary eyes, his helpless blushes, the way his whole body language changes slightly around Tayama because she unsettles him in a way that he cannot name and is not ready to process. There's a hilarious rapport between the two leads, the way Tayama enjoys teasing Sasaki and the way Sasaki receives this teasing with a kind of baffled sincerity that is somehow both funny and very endearing. He's not cool, he's not composed, he's just a tired man who is very slowly becoming someone's person and he doesn't even know it yet. And critically, and this is a point several reviewers have raised, the show handles smoking with what can only be described as maturity and non-preachiness. Smoking is not glamorized, it's not condemned, it's just there as a social habit that two people share and it creates the conditions for a connection. When Sasaki gets a health scare and has to consider quitting, it's handled as a reflection on routine comforts rather than a lecture. The story is interested in how we build our little rituals and what it means when those rituals are threatened, not in telling you how to live. Because for example, if Sasaki quits smoking, he has no reason to meet Tayama anymore. That little ritual is what keeps their bond close. I want to close with something that I think is at the heart of why smoking behind the supermarket with you resonated the way it did. A quick reflection of our lives. The people watching anime right now are tired, like I am, not just the characters, the viewers, us. A large portion of today's anime audience has grown up alongside the medium. Many fans who have started watching high school romances years ago are now working adults themselves. They have jobs they find somewhere between tolerable and crushing, they have commutes, they have the specific low-grade exhaustion of contemporary life. Most people are basically living Nanami's life from Jujutsu Kaisen. And they came to this show about a man who just wants 5 minutes of peace and accidentally finds love in a parking lot. And maybe they saw themselves, not as a power fantasy, not as a what if I were the main character, just as people who are navigating the world with imperfect tools and still somehow finding moments that matter. The smoking area behind the supermarket is, of course, not really about smoking. It's about finding your person in an unlikely place. It's about the small rituals we build to survive the days. It's about how connection doesn't usually announce itself with drama and spectacle. It just sits down next to you and asks if you have a light. Connection and love are usually found in weird places, sometimes mundane. Sasaki is a man whose life had been reduced through overwork and routine to a single small bright spot. A cashier at a grocery store who smiled at him, and then, when even that was temporarily unavailable, he found something else, something more real. Someone who knew him as just a person, not a customer, not a worker, just a person standing in the dark doing his best. And that's it, that's the whole show, nothing spectacular. Sometimes the most radical thing a story can do is look at the ordinary life and say, this is interesting, these people matter, sit with them for a while. And Smoking Behind the Supermarket with You does exactly that. The full series premieres on July 9th. If you want something that will make you feel warm and slightly melancholy in the best possible way, if you ever survived a bad day at work on nothing but stubbornness and a small pleasant thing, this one's for you. And if you don't have a job, this will prepare you for the future. Also, maybe be nicer to your cashier. You never know what kind of story they're in. Also, if you're new here, I do chill commentary or silly videos depending on what I'm feeling, so subscribe if you like the vibe. I post every now and then, and as always, see you next time.